Hey Deserving Listeners documentary about Hunter Moore. Let's continue watching. Let's watch.
Guest in the chat room wants to know, you should ask Hunter what's up with the Bullyville article.
Come on, Bullyville. What the fuck? Come on. Dude, I'll be completely honest. I'm going to buy a ticket to Vegas, probably tonight, find out full wife and make his kids watch me live.
So he's saying this on the air. He knows this is being recorded. He knows this is public. And he's saying this. That's who this person is. Now, I'm sure to him and his cult, it's like, well, he doesn't really mean it. And that still happens today. There are toxic cults on the internet right now, groups on the internet that will say all sorts of things. In fact, the beginning of this whole story was along those lines. There were people posting pictures and then all these horrible comments. And if you asked any of those individuals, most of those individuals making those comments or enjoying those comments are probably not psychopathic people. They're probably normal human beings with a normal heart, a normal amount of empathy. But they will say, well, it's just a fun joke. But there's a massive danger to that, because when you normalize this kind of talk, it normalizes the behavior. So I don't know, but I think if you were to ask him, straight out, he would say, well, no, I'm not going to go to his house. It's just a way of attacking him. I'm just lashing out verbally. I would never do that, and I don't want to. On the other hand, does he believe, Hunter Moore, that he could do that it's okay for him to do that, one, and two, that he would be capable of doing it? Because just think about what he's saying. He's saying, I could go to this guy's house and I know his wife would love me. Is that a narcissistic sign? I don't know. I can't diagnose from afar, and there's just so little information, but I don't know, just thought I'd point that out.
The creator of Is Anyone Up is working on a new website. It's called HunterMoore.tv, because his name is Hunter Moore. He just told Beta Beat that the concept is the same. You upload a compromising picture of someone with their name and links to their online profiles, but now there's going to be an address field and a map. Here's a cute quote. If someone killed themselves over being on Is Anyone Up, do you know how much money I'd make?
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. When you see psychopaths out themselves, that's one thing I'm always trying to stress, is that the way the media and movies portray psychopaths, the way that they're often portrayed is that they're evil geniuses, and they're not. 99% of people with psychopathic personality or antisocial personality, they shoot themselves in the foot and they reveal themselves. But the difference is, for Hunter Moore, he's on the internet, there's a lot of attention to him, and so people will see his behavior and they'll corroborate evidence. Usually, the vast majority of the time, these individuals who are psychopaths, who are antisocial, they're not on the internet very much, or the way that everyone else is, and or their victims don't have the ability to out that individual. And so they just go from person to person and harm people. And every victim will tell the same story. It's like, well, she was charming, he was nice to me, and then he sucked me in, and then before long she was harming me. But I want to stress that over time, people with this personality, their lives will be train wrecks, because they have a difference about them that actually harms other people, but indirectly that harms them back, because they're pushing people away from them, and you piss off enough people and they'll try to attack you, right? Or they'll take revenge on you, or that sort of thing. Plus, you don't really think the way other people think, and thus you can't navigate socially in a way that is conducive to not getting in trouble with things and not incurring some kind of consequences. So a very common place, not all the time, but a very common place that psychopaths will end up is in prison, because they're at a party and someone pisses them off, and they're prone to a lot of alcohol use as well. They will punch someone and brutally beat that person and get thrown in jail. And then they get out of jail, or even in prison, they will continue the psychopathic behavior and have additional years added on, that kind of thing. Or they'll get out and go right back to that behavior. The first day, boom, they're back in prison. That's a very common path for people with psychopathy. Now, there is some research that points to people who might be able to hold it together enough. Maybe they're lower on the spectrum, or they have privilege, or they are very smart, and they're able to avoid those kinds of consequences for sure. But what we're seeing here, potentially with Hunter Moore, is that he just bulldozes his way through life. All the while, I don't know what his personality is like, but I know that he is exhibiting someone with no empathy. He's not exhibiting empathy and care. He's not exhibiting actual remorse. And then he acts like he's remorseful, which is a massive lie to everyone, and he seems very comfortable with that kind of talk. And then he's losing money all the while he's saying, I'm making money. And I didn't show all the lies he was saying. He was saying that he purposely sold it to the anti-bullying website as a troll. He was like, it was a joke that he was playing on everyone. That's what he was claiming. But of course, according to the person who bought the website, Is Anyone Up? It's a different story. It's that Hunter Moore was actually really hard up money-wise and also was very scared of the authorities breathing down it. And so he's saying he's going to start a new website, and it's going to be exactly the same as Is Anyone Up, but it is going to have even more criminal behavior because you can add an address. So you can not only post illegal pictures, you can connect their Facebook, but you can also add their address. And there's so many different things he could have done with his notoriety, which is notable, right? He could have easily started some sort of dirtbag fashion line or something, but he didn't. He decided to continue to harm other people. He's choosing it, even though he knows that the authorities are breathing down his neck. The FBI have already confiscated his computers. Even though all that has happened, he's like, yep, more of that. So that points to a desire to harm other people. So it's also sadism, right? Psychopaths aren't necessarily sadists, and sadists aren't necessarily psychopaths, but sadists take pleasure in harming other people. They wake up in the morning and it's one of their needs. The way that you and I assume you're not a sadist, when we wake up in the morning, we have a lot of needs. We have a need for thirst, a need for productivity, a need for attachment, a need for sleep. And for sadists, they have an additional need, which is to harm other people or to witness harm in other individuals.
Hunter announced that he was going to launch his new site. He put it all over the press, and he said he was going to bring back the same photos, which of course meant my daughter's picture would go back up. He said he was going to include the address of the victims along with driving directions on how to get to their houses.
So if that's true, I mean, what a colossal, stupid decision. Just the FBI, they have your hard drives. Is he planning on fleeing the country or something? Because he thinks maybe if I'm not in the States, I can get away with it? Or I don't know what he could possibly be thinking. Now, I think the documentary is trying to make the case that when his website went down, he no longer had the love and the accolades. His cult following started to drift away. And so as the weeks and months went by, he was desperate for that perhaps narcissistic supply, that he had this constant supply of people praising him and thinking that he's a wonderful person. So who knows, but yeah, you sprinkle in a little bit of narcissism, you sprinkle in a little bit of psychopathy, you sprinkle in a little bit of sadism, and maybe this is what you get. Now, we're starting to get into the dark triad or the dark tetrad, which is dark triad traditionally is described as a psychopathic trait, meaning lack of empathy, callousness, a narcissistic trait, meaning self-centered and needing narcissistic supply, needing people to praise you, feeling better and entitled than other people. And the third is Machiavellianism, which is the orientation towards scheming against other people, meaning that you will kind of ruminate on how to get one over on others, how to con other people, how to get other people to do what you want to do. Like for the average, let's just take, when we were kids, all of us would probably lie at times, right? Or we at least lied once. And well, I'll just use myself for example. So I'm not Machiavellian. You're just gonna take my word for it. And when I was 4 years old, I remember I shoplifted a Jolly Rancher. There was this giant bulk bin of candies. I don't know if it was an exact Jolly Rancher. It was, it was a hard candy. And I was like, I wanted to get it. And there's literally 3 cents a pop in 1975 or something. And so I'm like, okay, no one's looking. And I was terrified. I remember this vividly, the whole event that I'm about to describe to you. And I took it and I pocketed it. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I find my mom and I get in line with her and we're checking out at the grocery store. And I remember, sorry, actually, scrap that. A different shoplifting incident when I was 4. that incident I got away with. While I'm on the topic of stealing when I was 4, apparently I went through a phase. I stole my friend's Matchbox car, and it was the exact same Matchbox car as I had, which I didn't even really want it. I remember I just was like, ooh, I can take it, and I took it. And my friend's Matchbox car, and I remember it was red, and it had like this engine that was sticking out of the trunk, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what they call it, and his was actually more banged up than mine. So I stole a car I already had, and it was a worse version of it. So I don't know what I was doing, but I stole it. And I remember I was sitting in the hallway of my in my house, and my mom walks by, and she just sees me looking a little funny, and she just was attuned enough to me to be like, what's going on? And I just broke down crying. I'm like, I stole Mark's car, I'm so sorry. And she's like, I don't know what she was thinking, but she was like, well, okay, good. It's good that you confessed. Now you have to tell him, you have to return it, and you have to apologize. I think I even did it in front of his dad, who later became my wrestling coach, by the way. But anyway, so, and actually Mark and I were wrestling captains together. we were good friends throughout our childhood. Anyway, so that was my other story. Another story, while I'm on the topic, was that story I was telling about the grocery store. I'm in line, and I'm looking at those impulse buy items, like Snickers bars, candy bars, stuff. And there were some chiclets. And I remember I really wanted those chiclets, but I knew that my mom wouldn't get it for me. And I remember I was staring at his eye level. I'm 4 years old, and I'm like, I want those chiclets. And I was like, maybe I could steal them. And I'm completely in my own world at this point. I'm just like, maybe I could steal them. Maybe I could pocket them. But it's such a big box, and I'm little, so the box is probably like this big to me. I'm like, how could I hide that? And I'm really kind of thinking about it. And then all of a sudden the cashier, the woman, she comes around and she's right in my face. So I'm staring at this chiclets going like, I want that. How do I steal that? And all of a sudden the cashier's right in my face. And so because I'm 4 years old and I haven't really figured out how the world works yet, and the world revolves around me because I'm 4, I'm like, oh, she must be in my face because she knows I was going to steal the chiclets. And so I erupt into tears. I'm like, I'm sorry. And the cashier is like, your mom is leaving the store. You need to follow her. My mom was leaving the store, and I guess my mom just figured I'd follow. Things were different in the 70s. And so, but I didn't know that. So the cashier's in my face. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And the cashier's like, what's happening? Your mom's over there. And I'm like, oh, I'm crying on my way. And I don't think I ever confessed to it, but I do remember that. Anyway, my point is that if I were more Machiavellian, I would have been better at stealing. I would have been able to piece together a plan of just like, okay, the next time I'm there, I need to distract them with this, and then I'll pocket it. Or I would have stolen that car from my friend and had a story, an alibi prepared, right? If my mom says, what's going on with you and this? You're just sitting in the hallway kind of moping. Like, I would have had a plan, but I didn't have another example I can point to know that I'm not Machiavellian. Or I think I'm the opposite of Machiavellian. I think everyone has a little bit of it, which I always kind of envied to some extent. For example, when I was young, my mom would make this one dish that wasn't very great, and she will admit today that it's not a great dish. It was stew, and it had very hard chunks of beef that were overcooked, and so my small mouth couldn't really chew them and make them get it down my throat. And so I would end up gagging, and I won't go into the details, but it was hard. But in my family, you ate all your food, and you didn't complain. And so sometimes I'd just be sitting there at the table, like, eyeing these cubes of beef going like, how am I going to make this work? Like, I can't, if I could get it down my throat, I would, but it's like, it's so gross to me. So what I would do is I would just power through it. But years later, or maybe not even that long later, I think I was watching a movie or something, and a kid in the movie didn't like the food, and so he took the food and fed it to the dog behind, and the parents didn't see it. It's like, ooh, I don't like, and kind of fed it to the dog. And I remember thinking, maybe I was in my 20s, I remember thinking, how come that never occurred to me? Because we had a dog that I could have easily just taken it, and because what would happen is sometimes, it probably happened like a couple times in my life, where my parents would leave me and my siblings would leave me at the table until I finished my meal. And so I was alone. I mean, my parents were within eyesight watching TV in the living room or something, but I wasn't being monitored. I could have easily just gone like, huh, and fed it to the dog, and the dog would have eaten it. Why didn't that never even occurred to me as I'm staring into this stew for I don't know, a couple hours just going, what do I do? I wish I could watch TV, but I gotta choke this down. Never occurred to me. I'm not Machiavellian. Average people would have thought of that. I did not. I don't have it in me or something, and so I wish I had a little bit of it. So that's what Machiavellian. Now, that's the dark triad, so narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism, which is a really terrible combination, by the way. The dark tetrad adds a fourth element, which is sadism, because often when we're labeling people as having dark triad, we're actually including the concept of sadism, but we're not labeling it. Because, as I've been saying throughout the series, you can have psychopathy without sadism. You can have Machiavellianism without sadism. You can have narcissism without sadism. When you add sadism, then you have trouble. Then you have someone who will not only want to harm other people, but they don't care about other people's feelings. They think the world revolves around them, and they're oriented towards making plans to enact their harm of others.
He said, by the way, when you and your daughter get my mouths, you will realize how hard I control you. Posting your daughter's nudes tonight, I am the internet genius and will ruin your life and your daughter's the fun way.
Wow. I mean, up until this point in the documentary, I'm just like, well, I don't know. Maybe he's just one of those dirtbags from the early internet that didn't have a fully online executive function in his prefrontal cortex. But now I'm looking at this and thinking, my goodness. Now, of course, what he and a lot of his fans would say is like, this, he's trolling. He knows what he's about shock value. And okay, but if it smells like a psychopath and looks like a psychopath.
The things that he and all of his followers would say about her online were absolutely terrifying.
This is eerily similar to Tiger King with, I can't remember his name, but the Tiger King and the Carol so-and-so, they were in a fight, right? And I think a lot of people looking at Carol say, well, she's got some issues, but her crusade against him was probably justified, right? She was trying to out him for treating these animals in a very inhumane way. I don't know if those allegations were founded or not, but I think they were. Anyway, and the Tiger King, had a lot of followers that would actually go after her. And then at a certain point, Tiger King actually hired someone to kill her, right? So we're seeing that a similar pattern with Hunter Moore, in that the mom, Charlotte Laws, is going after him, posting stuff. Now, she doxed him, which is, I wouldn't recommend anyone do that for various reasons, but I also don't think that it's cool. It's stooping to their level. I don't know why she did that. She says she did it because she wanted to out him to his fans. I don't think that would work. I think that just gives his cult members, I think it just gives them an excuse to do that back to you or to anyone else. So I don't approve of that. But she did that and gave him a taste of his own medicine, I guess is the way that she would see it. So now all of his people, including him, are saying, we're going to get you. We're going to get you, Charlotte Laws. And that's a similar thing as what Carol Baskin was going through, right?
We do not forget. Hunter Moore, expect us.
They took down Hunter Moore's servers. They wiped out all the data on those servers. They wiped out all the backups to that data, so he couldn't even restore from anything.
It's sad that we need vigilantism to protect people like Charlotte Laws and others from people like Hunter Moore. That Hunter Moore and his cult of toxicity, they were free to attack, to threaten, to dox, to make all sorts of vile comments, that they're just free to do that. And everyone agrees that that's not okay. And yet somehow our society just allows it. Now, of course, there's freedom of speech and where do you draw the line and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know. It just seems like it's just not okay. And so when Anonymous, this vigilantism group that's actually committing crimes, I think they're about to do something to a security number, they're committing crimes by hacking into his servers, which is illegal. So because our justice system is underfunded, or I don't know, something's going on where everyone agrees something wrong is happening, but we can't do anything about it. The fact that we need another illegal operation to create justice is a problem, right? Like, imagine that, right? You have a group of kids down the street who is terrorizing the neighborhood. You call the police, they don't come. And so you get together with some neighbors, you get some guns, and you go shoot them. I mean, we don't live in the Wild West anymore, right? We live in a country of laws and a country of regulations and institutions. And so it's just sad that Anonymous is the good guys in this scenario. Now I understand the FBI agents are saying, look, we had to build a case. We had to catch him. We couldn't just go into court and stop him without strong evidence that we could actually put him behind bars. And I get that totally, but there should be some other measure in place, some temporary measure, some temporary court order that says, like, you can no longer go on the internet, or you can no longer talk about that person. You can no longer make threats to those people. That's not okay. So why doesn't that exist? Does it exist?
Hunter Moore didn't even exist for like a month. He was dead. They wrecked every aspect of his life. Now, I can't say that I'm in agreement with the illegal activities, because everything that was just mentioned is very illegal. Although I can't say I agreed with it, I enjoyed the shit out of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would, but we have to really look at ourselves and say, what's wrong with this picture? That you have a group of illegal hackers who are doing something against Hunter Moore, shutting him down, creating actual consequences to him. And you have the mom, Charlotte Laws, who is doxing him, which is also not okay. They are resorting to that because there's no other recourse. There's nothing else they can do. There's something wrong there.
Hunter Moore, he went through so many people, hacking so many people, posting so many people, but then he got to me. And along with me comes my mom. And my mom is not a person you want to cross.
Yeah, great. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know how truthful this documentary is, but it seems truthful. It just seems like, yeah, the mom single-handedly brought this guy down and managed to pass laws so that other people couldn't do this kind of thing. It's just like amazing, right? It just says, like, you can win, you can have social justice, you can fight. There is sanity in the world, you know? Someone has to do it, and thank God we had her, right? I didn't show this, but he went to prison for a couple years, I think 2 or 3 years, and his accomplice, the individual who was actually doing the hacking, also went to prison. And the victim, she was talking about how in court she gave her victim statement, and a lot of the other victims didn't want to come forward. I think that's what they're saying. And that just tells you about, because I'm guessing the documentary reached out to a lot of these individuals, but I'm guessing a lot of people didn't take them up on it, not because they're cowards, but because our society will attack those people. Like, the individuals interviewed are probably getting some support, obviously, but also other people attacking them, that kind of, or at least judgment of them. So there's that. The other thing I didn't show was that some people were on this site, you know, their emails were hacked and photos were pasted on this site, and they lost their job. There was a kindergarten teacher, something along those lines. And yeah, it's just awful. Not only awful that someone would hack their account, not only awful that someone would post it, not only awful that it would be out there for the internet, and but also awful that a school would fire someone for being a victim of a crime. That's just wrong, right? It's just, but our society is so backwards when it comes to these kind of things. But anyway, so yeah, like I've been saying, make no doubt about it, this is still happening. He wasn't the only toxic group. That toxicity, him and his cult members are probably 0.01% of the toxicity on the internet. They all still exist. They're all still out there. They just might be following a different cult leader, you know, on the internet. All right, well, that is it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.